Hope4Cancer is a Mexican clinic that offers alternative treatments for cancer patients. Hundreds of people have used crowdfunding websites like GoFundMe to raise millions of dollars for their expensive treatments. And many of these people are under the impression that Hope4Cancer routinely delivers miracle cures. I've spent the last few weeks matching crowdfunding campaigners to their social media and obituaries, and I found that most of these people who raised money on GoFundMe to be treated at Hope4Cancer are now deceased. So let's take a look at Hope4Cancer's crowdfunding graveyard. Now, if you go on the Hope4Cancer website today, you'll see a carefully curated list of what they call patient journeys, and they have slick interviews with these survivors extolling the benefits of Hope4Cancer's treatment methods. But clearly not everyone who gets treated at Hope4Cancer survives their disease. I've already made videos about Rachel Bicovny and Carla Reed, who both visited the clinic in Mexico before dying of their breast cancer. And everything isn't quite as it seems even on this list of patient testimonials. I couldn't track down everyone here, but Bob Henry has passed away just this last month, so I expect his story to be removed in the near future. Now, obviously, Hope4Cancer is never going to publish a scientific study of their treatment centres or participate in any real clinical trials, and because the treatments they offer are unproven or far-fetched, we can't infer their success rates from other published literature like we might do for a normal hospital practicing scientifically established procedures. But if we are interested in gaining some kind of insight into what happens to a typical Hope4Cancer patient, we can look at the crowdfunding campaigns. And they're interesting because people generally make the campaigns before they receive treatment, and unlike the stories that Hope4Cancer shares, there doesn't seem to be any particular motivation to delete these fundraising pages even if the subject passes away. This makes the patients on GoFundMe a sort of prospective sample. It's certainly far from perfect, but I think you're about to see that this might be a somewhat revealing approach. So at the time of recording this video, there are over 200 search results for Hope4Cancer on the GoFundMe website. About 20 of these are duplicates or deleted campaigns, so in the last few weeks I've read through the remaining 182 campaigns and pulled out some of the relevant details like when they started their fundraiser, what type of cancer they had, and how much they were looking to raise, and I've added all these details to a spreadsheet. Most importantly, of course, I tried to figure out if the patient in question is still alive today. For a lot of deceased people, this was relatively straightforward. You can find an obituary or a social media post about their passing. Meanwhile, some people are still active on social media or updating their fundraising page, so they're likely still alive. And for the remaining 20% of people, I couldn't figure it out one way or another. I found a lot of social media accounts that weren't active, but then some people don't post anyway, even when they are alive. And I put all these people in the category of not sure, so there's some margin of error here, but for the purpose of this video, I don't think it's especially important. So the main aim of this video isn't to come up with a survival rate or calculate the efficacy of Hope4Cancer's treatments, and I'll explain why that's not really possible as we go along. What I want to do here though is compare the expectations and predictions of people who start these fundraisers with the reality of their outcomes. And I would say the expectations, or should I say hopes, are set very high. Having read through these campaigns and plenty of other comments online, I know that a large proportion of people who head out to these clinics are expecting to be cured, or at the very least given treatments that are more effective than those offered to them by conventional medicine. I've routinely read comments from people like Michelle Wallace, who says that 92% of Hope4Cancer's stage 4 patients are alive at 4 years, and Dana Friesen, who says that Hope4Cancer has success rates almost double Western medicine, and I could read many more hyperbolic comments in the same vein. So the question I'm going to keep trying to answer in this video is something like this: are the expectations of Hope4Cancer's patients being met? So let's start with some examples where this obviously isn't the case. Pancreatic cancer is a horrible disease that has one of the worst survival rates of any type of cancer. It's usually only diagnosed when it's too late for surgery, and the 5-year survival rate is something like 7%. Between 2015 and 2019, 9 people with this disease raised tens of thousands of dollars to be treated at Hope4Cancer. Kim DeLong's family said he was on a quest to become cancer-free. Teddy Richardson said that Hope4Cancer has the kind of success rates that mean she might be able to beat the disease, and Milagor Robles said she was going to Hope4Cancer for a cure. None of these cures ever materialized, and as of 2020, all 9 of these people are dead. Stomach cancer is another disease with quite dismal survival rates. 20% of people might survive 5 years, and 3 people with stomach cancer fundraised to go to Mexico. Gary Pritchard and Yolanda Ornelas were both told that there were no conventional treatments available to them, but Hope4Cancer offered to treat them and said they were confident they could fix Gary. And they told Nadia Lashmanova that their survival rates exceeded those for patients who were given chemo. All 3 of these stomach cancer fundraisers are deceased in 2020. And all of the GoFundMe campaigns for esophageal and liver cancer also failed, with another 6 deceased patients. But let's move on to some types of cancer where there are still some living patients. Now, a quick aside, one of the curiosities I noticed whilst going through these fundraisers is that there are a lot more women. In fact, more than 3/4 of the Hope4Cancer campaigns on GoFundMe are for the benefit of a female, and this makes sense. Women are generally more likely to use alternative medicine. And because of this, a large proportion of these campaigns are focused on breast cancer. Now, unlike pancreatic, stomach, esophageal and liver cancer, the survival rates of breast cancer with conventional treatments are really impressive. 1-year survival is around 95%, and 5-year survival is about 90%. When it comes to Hope4Cancer, between 2013 and 2020, 67 women raised money to visit the clinic for breast cancer treatment. The vast majority of campaigns were started in the last 4 years. Since then, 27 of these ladies have passed away, 25 are probably alive, and 15 I couldn't make any clear decision on. So that means somewhere around half of these breast cancer patients have died over a time period of less than 5 years. Now, given that the 5-year survival of breast cancer in the general population is around 90%, there's nothing even remotely encouraging about these numbers. Now, sure, it's not a like-for-like comparison. We don't know what stage these women are or when they were first diagnosed, but it's very hard to reconcile this rate of death with people's perceptions of Hope4Cancer. For example, Edel O'Mahony said that 98% of Hope4Cancer's stage 4 patients make a full recovery. She described that survival rate as staggering, and to be fair, it is a staggering lie. Carleen Polk Stubblefield's family said that they already knew that by travelling to Hope4Cancer she would beat her disease and be cured. Sarah Stewart Vanderbilt said that the treatment was working, and of course, all 3 of these women, along with many others, died from their breast cancer. Now, obviously, some of them are still alive, and you might think that means that Hope4Cancer's treatments have worked for a segment of this population. But the reality is that breast cancer doesn't kill very quickly, even if you don't treat it at all. You can find reports on the mortality of untreated breast cancer, especially in articles published before the 1950s. A paper published in 1927, for example, reported that of 100 untreated breast cancer cases, about 40% lived to 3 years, which probably compares quite nicely to Hope4Cancer's numbers. Now, all of this doesn't mean that no one claims to have cured their breast cancer, but as always, we should be very cautious about taking these claims at face value. Nikki Nelson's May of 2019 update looks very positive, and as far as I can tell, she's still alive today. But unfortunately, she's using thermography to track the progress of her disease, which is not an effective substitute for other more established methods. Whether she's actually getting better remains to be seen. She says that she's lost 65 pounds, as if that's a positive outcome of her treatment, but rapid weight loss is unfortunately also a symptom of cancer progression. Almost everyone who goes to Hope4Cancer seems to report that the blood flow to their tumours has decreased during treatment, but to the best of my knowledge, that's not a credible means to monitor disease progression either. Moving on from breast cancer, perhaps the only somewhat unexpected result I came across through all these fundraisers was Christy Dodson's story. She says that her stage 3 melanoma was cured by the oncolytic virotherapy Rigvir. It's supposedly a virus that targets and kills melanoma cells specifically. Now, it's worth noting that this is a conventionally developed treatment. I don't see what's alternative or holistic about it, other than the lack of evidence to support its efficacy. Now, it was reimbursed in Latvia for some time, but was removed from sale in 2019 because manufactured samples failed independent testing. Hope4Cancer apparently offers Rigvir to essentially anyone with any cancer, which seems like a blatant money grab to me, but could it have worked for Christie's melanoma, which is, after all, the cancer it was developed to treat? Well, it's not beyond the realms of possibility, but on the other hand, 4 other people raised money to be treated for melanoma at Hope4Cancer, and they're all dead. Somewhat ironically, Veronica Toothman, who is one of these unfortunate ladies who passed away, said that Hope4Cancer has an 82% success rate in treating melanoma. According to these GoFundMe cases, they have an 80% failure rate. The only way to sort out uncertainty like this is to run a clinical trial. Hope4Cancer certainly won't do that, and it doesn't seem that Rigvir's developers have ever run a sufficiently rigorous trial either. Perhaps they know something we don't. So what should we make of Christie's story of curing her stage 3 melanoma? Well, with the added context of the 4 other deaths and the withdrawal of Rigvir from sale in Latvia, probably not a great deal. People who go to these alternative clinics often falsely claim to be cured before passing away. I've made several videos on exactly that subject, so I don't find Christie's story even remotely compelling. Honestly, I would have to guess that most of the people who fundraised for Hope4Cancer and are still alive today are simply living with their disease. Very few people updated their fundraisers to say that they're getting better, and plenty of them are still soliciting funds today. Notwithstanding Christie's story and perhaps a handful of others like it, the miracle cure, real or not, is very clearly not the typical outcome for people who raise money to visit Hope4Cancer. So up until this point I haven't stated in clear terms what a lot of people might have wanted to hear. But I'll say it now. As of 2020, 95 of 182 people who fundraised for Hope4Cancer are deceased, so that's about 52%. 48 are very likely still alive, that's about 26%, and for 39 people I couldn't make any clear decision. And I've been cautious because I really need to make it clear that the headline of this video cannot and should not be any kind of boneheaded opinion like Hope4Cancer kills 52% of its patients, or perhaps even worse, Hope4Cancer cures 26% of its patients. Unfortunately, the main reason that this 26% are alive today is most likely because a lot of these fundraisers were only set up in the last year or so. If you look at older campaigns like the 73 set up between 2013 and 2017, at least 3/4 of them are deceased. Meanwhile, the great majority of those definitely still alive in 2020 only made their campaign in 2019 or after. I'm sure if I check back in a year or two's time, a great many more of these people will have also passed away. So what should the headline be? Well, the information I pulled from these fundraisers was a big mess of people with different types of cancer at different stages, unknown treatments and dates of diagnosis. It's not always possible to figure out if someone even attended the clinic after raising the money. But I think the perception of Hope4Cancer as a facility that delivers miracle cures cannot be reconciled with the results that you can see for yourself on GoFundMe. And that's what I'd like the takeaway to be. I don't know where these patients get their ideas and stats from, but it's hard to imagine they just made them up. I keep reading numbers like 92% or 90.2% referring to various different survival rates at Hope4Cancer, but clearly these can't be even close to the truth. From my perspective, everything I saw in these fundraisers is entirely consistent with Hope4Cancer offering fake treatments for enormous sums of money. These campaigns raised nearly $3 million, but almost none of them were fully funded, at least not online. Assuming that most people made up the difference themselves, Hope4Cancer would have pulled in $11 million from these 182 patients. And I expect that only a minority of people actually turn to crowdfunding, so we're only seeing a fraction of their business. Hope4Cancer is taking a lot of money out of the hands of cancer patients, many go on to die. The best way to move forward in a situation like this is for Hope4Cancer to publish their results in a scientific journal, but of course they've no intention of doing that, so we don't know how effective their treatments are, but they seem quite comfortable with the current situation where they can tell anyone whatever they like, they just don't put it on their website. Now, one of the comments I often get on my videos is something along the lines of, who are you to tell someone what to do, or you don't know because you don't have cancer, but I really try and avoid telling anyone what to do other than obvious advice like, say, consult a licensed oncologist. I just try and present the facts of a situation or story. I'm not telling anyone that they shouldn't go to Hope4Cancer. Everyone has to make their own informed decision, and my position is that the information provided by Hope4Cancer is probably detrimental to that process. Now there will be a follow-up to this video. There's a lot of information I didn't manage to put in. There's some specific stories that might be worth discussing in more detail, and I'm expecting some criticism, so I'll probably try and address that in the sequel. I also want to talk more clearly about the kind of treatments that Hope4Cancer offers. Spoiler alert, they're not effective. Okay, so videos like this take me a long time to make, and I'll only keep doing them if people are watching them. The thing that gets me the most views is sharing videos, so if you know someone who might be interested in this kind of thing, send them a link. If you're in a Facebook group or a subreddit, make a post. There's only so much I can do. And the last thing I want to add is that this was a really sad video to make. A lot of the people who went to Hope4Cancer were young, all of them had friends and family, and none of them deserved to be diagnosed with cancer. Tony Jimenez might well be happy to move on to new campaigns and fresh fundraisers, but we shouldn't forget about the trail of drained bank accounts and dead patients his team leaves behind. They're just as important as his precious patient journeys.